So good evening. We are back to the Spirit's book. We haven't finished last week. You study with Elmo relationships beyond the grave, but the last two questions you haven't finished. So we are going to cover the last two questions, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Relationships beyond the grave here is what do we find when we go back to the spiritual world? How do we find ourselves? How we are received there, and who receives us, and which type of spirits we connect to. So, Philip, you read the 289, please.
Yes. Do our friends and family ever come to meet us when we leave this world? Yes. They meet the souls of their loved ones, welcome them like travelers safely returning from a journey, and help them to free themselves from their material bonds. Being met by loved ones is a favor granted to good spirits. Meanwhile, the wicked are punished by being left alone or as a result of only being surrounded by spirits who are like themselves.
So when I go back to the spiritual world, it depends on our moral and intellectual involvement, right? Where we find ourselves. Of course, the knowledge and understanding of this life in the spiritual world will help us as soon as we overcome the confusion of being back in the spiritual world. The understanding of how life works in the spiritual world will help us. But we are going to be received by our familiar spirits, maybe our guardian angel, maybe the ones who love us, if we did enough to deserve this reception back in the spiritual world. Now, we need to remember that we are going to meet only those that are in conditions to meet us. We like to use the example of André Luiz, right? Who is received by his mother, who was at a more evolved spiritual colony, but is not received by his father, his grandfather, his sisters that we met later in the André Luiz collection that are in the lower zones, in different states of confusion that does not allow them to be present when André Luiz goes back to the spiritual world. So we wish to be reunited with our loved ones. If we led a good life and if we led a upright life, trying to morally improve, intellectually improve, we are going to be received by those that are in condition to receive us, and that will help us on the transition back to the spiritual world. Now, the ones that are still attached to material bonds, that are still focused on their physical problems, they are either find themselves alone, not understanding what's going on with them, or they're going to be surrounded by spirits that will try to dominate them, take advantage of them, slave them. I know you studied liberation this past Sunday, that actually a couple of Sundays ago, where we find many examples of the spirits that are in Gregorius, under Gregorius domination, which are spirits that are this type of spirits that here they are called wicked. They are less evolved spirits, they are struggling spirits. So, depends on how we find ourselves on our vibrational level, we are going to be assisted or not, depending on our conditions, okay? Elmo, did anything was left from last week, or did you need to add something? I went over last week a little bit. I heard parts of it, but not all the class.
Sorry.
Yes,
no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much everything. And what you said is the most important thing is to always keep in mind that is two parts of individuals have to be in condition to interact with one another. Our relatives who are in the spiritual world must be in condition to receive us, and we have to be in condition to perceive their presence.
Exactly.
Because that's important. Maybe they are there, but they were in such a bad shape that they are not able to perceive their presence. So very often, the spirits were able to be there, they will be there. But are we awake enough to perceive their presence? Are we vibrating at a higher level? They are able to notice their presence? Or are we, with our conscience, so deep into guilty and other negative things that we cannot see those who are there to help us? And another thing, who is attracting us? What are we allowing ourselves to attract to us? Our loved ones or those who perhaps we have greater affinity with at that moment?
Exactly. That's very good.
Yes. Thanks, Nomo. 290, Philip? Last one on this item.
Do relatives and friends always reunite after death? That depends on their elevation and their road to advancement. If one is more advanced and progresses more rapidly than the other, they cannot stay together. They may see each other occasionally. They are reunited only when they can walk side by side or when both of them have reached equality in perfection. Sometimes spirits who are deprived of seeing friends and family have had this inflicted upon them as an atonement.
So, depending on where we are in the spiritual world, our spiritual condition, we are going to be reunited with our loved ones, relatives, and friends, or not. So, going back to André Luis to help us understand, right? His mother, that was in a more elevated colony, he met her sometimes, but they were not together. They didn't stay together. André Luis stayed in Ossular. He stayed in Lysia's house eventually, where all the family was reunited. So you see that a family that is more or less at the same level of evolution, they are together and Ossular and reunited. Lysia's, his mother, his sisters, and the mother was going to reincarnate during André Luis' presence there to be reunited with the father and start a new journey, a new family again. So it depends on the level of evolution. You are surrounded by spirits that are more or less at the same level of evolution that you are. And again, same thing here, right? Are we all together with our families all the time? We're not, right? Life happens and we move in different directions. Sometimes we have to move away from our families and continue living our life for different reasons. Same thing in the spiritual world. We are going to stay where we need to stay. And those spirits that are more evolved than us, they can come and visit us from time to time to help us, to guide us, to assist us. We cannot go there if we cannot go up because we are limited by our level of evolution. So André Luis goes to visit his mother in the colony that she lives when he's taken there, not when he wants, because he cannot go whenever he wants. When he's in the book The Messengers, he goes to the spiritual colony there, the transitional colony that he stays for a good part of the book, and he meets a spirit that keeps asking him how is Nossular, because he didn't have the opportunity to go to Nossular yet, because he doesn't have the advancement to go to Nossular. So again, we have to think of the spiritual world as in similar conditions as ourselves here in the physical world. that we are surrounded by loved ones, but not all the time, and according to our necessities. Okay. So any final questions on this item, relationships beyond the grave? Dani.
So, like, going back a little bit to question 289, like if we are not vibrating at the same level of the familiar, the family that might be receiving us, in reality, it doesn't really matter much, right? Because we cannot see them, or we are not receiving the assistance. So in that sense, it's not really happening as in a way that we are going to be helped out. We might be struggling to transition, to understand, and we spent many years here and then we go back to a new place. I know that we are not close to all the family we have, but you are going totally to a new dimension and a new way of living that you are catching up, but you don't know, you don't remember, you don't know where exactly you're going to be. So if you're not very, like, why would the family? So it doesn't matter. So my mom could be there, but I don't see her. So
well, but the fact that you don't see her doesn't mean she's not helping you. Let's think of André Luiz. He asks, when he finally sees his mother, he asks her, "Where were you all this time? 8 years and then some." And she said, "I was always next to you, but you couldn't see me because you were not prepared or not in condition." So our loved ones that are more evolved than we are will be there to help us and assist us. But we may or may not see them and connect to them. In the book, I Came Back, Voltaire, from Brother Jacob, the whole process of his discarnation, he's helped and assisted by his daughter that had discarnated before him, and that's more evolved than him. And he sees her all the time, and he's interacting with her all the time. So, it depends on each case, depends on our own availability to connect to these spirits that are there to help us. We may or may not see them according to our condition, but more evolved spirits than us will always see us and try to help and assist us as much as possible, even if we're not seeing them, perceiving them, seeing or perceiving them. Our guardian angel is always with us, right? Do we see him or her? Do we feel him or her? We just know, right? But we know that he or she is there. So
I can hear my guardian angel's warnings.
You can, right? Good.
I can see, but I like, oh, okay, maybe I went too far this time, so careful the next. But what I mean is more like, the question says specifically when we leave the material world. So I'm thinking more about that specific moment, because once we get going and then things can change and then we can meet other people or understand better the situation. But my point is, when we are confused and might need a familiar face, someone that you loved or but we can see, so the person is there, but we are not attuned. So it doesn't matter in the way that it might feel not so good.
Again, depend on each one of us. If you, let's say, you mentioned your mother. Let's say you want to see your mother, and you are in conditions to see your mother. It depends on you. If you are struggling to understand and accept that you have died, that you went back to the spiritual world, and you keep thinking, focusing your thoughts on different things, but not on what's happening around you, then you won't be able to see. But if you if you are open to receive assistance, even if you are struggling, if you are, if you are not in full control of yourself, struggling, but you are open to receive the assistance, you will see her because she's there to help you. The problem is when we are so immersed in our own struggles that we don't open ourselves to see what's around us. And that's when we are not able to see, which is what happened with André Luis, that stayed 8 years in the lower zone, right? Because he was there immersed in his own problems and thinking about his own issues, what was going on with him, why they were accusing him of suicide. He had to get to the end of his strength to open himself and ask for help. And that's when help that was always available to him, they were able to rescue him. Because you can only help those that sincerely want to be helped. And that's the thing here. If you are there isolated in your own struggles and not open to receive help and assistance, you may not be able to see those that are there to help and assist you.
So that, for example, for someone from a religion that doesn't believe in the continuation of life, that doesn't matter then, because if the person is open or attuned or aware, it might see the family members though. Even
yes.
if, right? So it's more related to the own personal condition at the moment.
Yeah, but there is the knowledge there. In the case that you said, well, all religions believe in after death. But let's say someone that doesn't believe in after death, but led a good life, was an upright spirit that tried to help others, tried to evolve. So has all the merits to receive the assistance. Goes back to the spiritual world, does not believe that there is life after death. So refuses to believe that he's dead. Continues to believe that he's alive, he or she's alive, because doesn't accept that there is something after death. So start seeing, because it's allowed, the condition allowed them to see familial spirits, but they may start thinking that it's an illusion, that it is a delirium, that there is, many other reasons that will make it more difficult. But eventually, they'll get tired of it, and then they'll receive the assistance. Because they have the merit, because they led a good life, you'll be a state of confusion that will not last long, because eventually they will accept, right? And then the help is there. Now, someone that believes in the afterlife, let's talk about the religions, but led, that is hoping to go to heaven and think that they led a good life, but they really didn't. So they expect to wake up in heaven, and then they get frustrated because they cannot see heaven, and where is the heaven I deserve, and that they are surrounded by spirits that maybe they don't recognize or understand. So it may be much more of a struggle for these spirits than for someone that didn't believe in after death, but led a good life, because then it's just a matter of changing the direction of the thought, clearing the confusion, which is easier than convincing someone that led a not so positive life that there is no heaven for them, that they have to go to readjust for their wrongdoings. I think it's a more difficult situation. Okay. Anyone else? Anything else? Elmo, anything else here to complement? No.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, especially when you read the question and it says at the moment that you leave this world. So I am interpreting at the moment that you leave this world as death has occurred, body, the body dies, we discarnate, the spirit discarnates, right? So that has occurred, has happened, and now they initiate the process of discarnation. That process of discarnation, there will be always the, what I like to call the technicians in the field of discarnation, the spirits who are there performing, assisting that process. It may be short, may be long, it depends on in various things. So now you have to think in what is the cause of the death of the physical body. Was something somewhat expected, a chronic death, a chronic disease, somebody who is going slowly and it's pretty much expected and has time to reflect upon it, has time to think of relatives, loved ones in the spiritual world, and all those things. That will be a process much easier to end up in the spiritual world once the process of discarnation is completed, and kind of even look around to see, are they here? It's different from someone who says they have an acute, or let's say an accidental death. Someone who has a completely unexpected process and end up in the spiritual world, even if the process of discarnation is completed, that person may have greater difficulty, regardless of being a believer or non-believer, of not only accept, but realizing that now that this person is now in the spiritual world. That will create a little difficulty. It needs some time. You just completely the book and life goes on. I forgot the name of the lady, and it should take a while before she even got to know what's happening there, right? And they allow her to take as much time as she needed and everything else. So I think it's very case by case. But I think once the process of discarnation is completed, now the spirit is completely free from that physical body. Then it will depend a lot on what this individual believe, understands, not believe, because belief is meaningless. It's what the individual know or don't know, right? And then the merit. So this person merit, be surrounded by these or these kind of spirits that will take place. But it does matter. You know, I know it's a very difficult comparison here, is even if, let's say, a loved one taking care of someone with advanced Alzheimer, and that person does not recognize who is taking care of it, doesn't care, is living a completely different world. That Alzheimer person is still receiving the care, the love, the attention from that loved one. And it's still helpful, even if that person does not recognize it, because of the stage in which that person lives at that moment. It matters at the present and will matter significantly in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Elmo. Okay, Danny? Okay. All right. So soulmates, sympathy, spirit sympathy, and antipathy. That's always a controversial subject. Let's go. Philip.
291.
Yep.
Besides the general sense of sympathy for similar beings, do spirits have any special feelings or sense of affection? Yes, just like incarnate people. However, the link between spirits is stronger when the body is gone because it is no longer subject to the impulses of passions.
Yes. So again, it's just us on the other side. So we continue to have the same affections and same disaffections that we have here. Now, we don't have the physical body and the needs of the physical body do no longer exist in the spiritual world, but the impulses and the passions of the spiritual, that the spirit carries in their minds are carried to the spiritual world. So we may go through a transformation, because the process of losing the physical body can be an experience that leaves us some mark, some consequence, and we'll see that those in further questions. But basically, continue to be the same. So whoever you love here, you love there, and whoever you don't like here, you continue not liking them, unless with the transition back to the spiritual world, you recognize that the differences that you had here while incarnated are no longer relevant when you lost your physical body. But we'll talk about it a little bit later. Okay. Next one, Philip.
Do spirits feel hatred? Hatred only exists among impure spirits. These spirits spread hatred and cause conflict among people.
So we have to remember that this is the first book. This is before Kardec went to expand the study of mediumship and the processes of fascination, obsession, subjugation, and the connections between the spirits incarnated and discarnate ones. So the answer is obvious. Hatred only exists among impure spirits. Pure spirits do not hate, but do not have any hate, otherwise they wouldn't be pure. More evolved spirits have less and less hatred until you can imagine at a certain point of the evolution, while they have not reached perfection, but hatred can be a sentiment that is erased from our feelings. I only imagine. I'm wondering here, because I don't think that it's going to be the last thing we have to get rid of before becoming perfect spirits is hatred. I think we have other imperfections that are going to last longer, because the sentiment of hatred, which is in the end very connected with the passion, right? Extreme passion becomes extreme hatred in many cases, are inferior passions, that sentiments that as we become more evolved, I think we are going to overcome before we reach perfection. But in pure spirits, we carry our hatred here. You are killed by someone, you are going to hate the person that killed you and try to persecute the person that killed you. This is hatred. This is desire of vengeance, and all these problems that cause these spiritual influences that we study in Spiritism, right? That are negative influences that can cause a lot of disturbances and a lot of problems for incarnated spirits. Okay. Questions here, comments? Okay, 293.
Do enemies on earth hold fast to their resentment of one another in the spirit world? No, because they see that it was stupid and meaningless. Only imperfect spirits maintain their hostility until they are purified. When spirits are dematerialized, they forget the anger they felt as incarnate people, as it was merely due to the material interests. As the subject of their disagreement no longer exists, they may happily see each other again, provided there is no hostility remaining between them. Two schoolboys often realize the silliness of their quarrels when they grow up and no longer hold a grudge.
Read next one.
Is the memory of crimes or injuries they may have committed against one another as human beings an obstacle to sympathy between two spirits? Yes, it keeps them apart.
So we mentioned before, right, the resentment that we can carry back to the spiritual world. If if the resentment, the differences are for material things, that when we go back to the spiritual world and understand that these material things have no meaning there, the resentment can disappear. But when the resentment is not for material things, is for jealousy, for other issues that are not material, of course we're going to carry them back to the spiritual world. And the law losing our physical body is not going to make us forget the reasons for our anger. So that's what the spirits are trying to separate here, right? When they are dematerialized and forget the anger due to a material interest. Let's say we are fighting here by, to have fighting with our brothers and sisters because we want to inherit something that we think is our right, and they think is their right. We're fighting for the possession of, let's say, a house. When I go back to the spiritual world, we see that the house was left behind. There's no reason for resentment. We may be able to overcome this resentment, understand our stupidity, and overcome it. But let's say we are angry because of we were betrayed by our husband, wife, partner, brother, sister, for betrayal, for any reason that is beyond material, love or other things. This will carry back to the spiritual world because we are. It's not material. They're looking back to our lives when we are back in the spiritual world. We are not going to look at it as a physical problem of the physical world. It's a more serious problem that involves the relationship and the issues with the relationship. So when Kardec talks here about the two schoolboys that realize the silliness of the quarrels and no longer hold a grudge, yes and no. I have seen schoolboys that continue to be enemies when they are older because they were never able to overcome their disputes when they were schoolboys. And you have schoolboys that understand their silliness of their fights and overcome and can become friends, can become at least civil to each other. So I think it all depends on the evolution of the spirit and the reasons behind the disputes that they had in the spiritual world. But when we have a crime, it usually keeps the spirits apart because one cannot forgive the other. The victim of a crime cannot forgive the perpetrator of the crime, and the perpetrator of the crime, sometimes with the guilty feelings, cannot approach the victim because they don't know how to deal with their own feelings. So that's what keeps them apart for different reasons. Okay.
May I?
Yes, Paco, go ahead.
May I interject that? Yeah, what we're saying here, yes, it's a general rule. Definitely, I agree with you. But Joel, I've seen cases. I think it was on True Television on one of the IDs, in which, listen to this: a child's mother was youngster. I mean, they were grown up already. Killed the other girl, his girlfriend, and the two mothers embrace each other. Do you know that? The mother of that who perpetrated the crime, okay, and the mother whose daughter was the victim, they both embrace each other, like in forgiveness and compassion, and was like, wow. I will never forget that.
The characteristics.
So this is true, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But those two ladies, for me, they were kind of
evolved spirits.
Evolved.
Yes. If you are evolved enough and you have an understanding of us as eternal spirits, you may be able to overcome this differences again.
Those differences,
On this case, a case of one killed the other, the mothers to overcome is It's difficult, it's hard,
For
but
us
it's a
to
sign of two more evolved spirits, right? That are able
definitely.
to go beyond. But this is the exception, clearly.
This is
At our level of evolution, it's the exception, for sure.
exception. You know, I said that what you're saying is, you know, the general rule. But
Yeah.
I've seen it even here. It's the only time I've seen it, by the way. Never again.
Yeah, you hear cases like that, right? You know, I was reading about this man that was condemned to death that was going to be executed today in Oklahoma, and the governor ended up commuting his sentence to life in prison. Thank God.
Oh, they did. They did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was accused of killing a man, and he always claiming to be innocent. The one of the family members, she was able to forgive him. She was able to fight for his life lately. It has been
Wow.
more than 20 years. While other members of the family still blame him and still wanted him to be executed. So you see, even amongst people that are involved in the same crime, the difference of evolvement of spirits that are more evolved or carry resentment and carrying desires of vengeance. And you know, this goes back to these spirits go back to the spiritual world. They've been carrying this for 20 years. They will continue carrying the anger. Maybe they will, you know, they will see the truth there, and maybe they will reflect better. We don't know. Each case is a case, but you see, amongst same group of people, different reactions, right?
Yeah. Like Elmo says, case by case, you know, has to
Yeah.
be case by case. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
295. How do those whom we have wronged feel after death? If they are good, they forgive you once you repent. If they are bad, they may cling to their resentment against you, or even track you down in another existence. This may be allowed by God as an atonement.
Not much to say here, right? What we discussed. If you have a degree of involvement, if you are evolved enough, good, you forgive. They forgive you once you repent, right? The victims. If you sincerely repent. If they are bad, they may continue persecuting you. But again, you only connect to those that vibrate at the same level. So if someone wants to obsess you because you caused them harm in a past life, but you have evolved and overcome the feelings, you are not going to connect to them because you are not going to allow allow them to connect to you vibrational. When they say here allowed by God as an atonement, meaning the natural law is the law of cause and consequence, right? So we are, in the end, we attune with those that vibrate at the same level as us. So the natural laws will allow this connection with between the victim and the perpetrator to happen, because both are vibrating at the same level, and that's how the obsessions and more serious cases start. Okay, not much more to say here, honestly. Okay. Any questions? No.
296. Can a spirit's individual affections change? No, because they cannot be mistaken. Hypocrites can no longer hide behind a mask in the spirit world, and their sentiments, when pure, are unchangeable. The love uniting them is a source of supreme happiness.
Okay, I was thinking of Gregorio's mother, right, on the book Liberation. She's an evolved spirit, and there she is trying to rescue the leader of the one of the leaders of the lower zones, a very wicked, evil spirit. But the love is unchangeable because it's pure. She loves her son regardless of what he's doing. This is pure love. So these affections that are true and pure are unchangeable. Affections that are only temporary because they are of physical attraction, because they are convenient at a time, these affections can disappear because they were not true and pure affections. The real loved ones that we have, we are never going to lose. So the concept here of the universal love for our universal family, you can see how it's formed piece by piece, incarnation by incarnation. You keep growing your family, universal family, because your true loved ones will continue to be your true loved ones, and you keep adding on each incarnation one, two, a few that will become part of your universal family. So you see, you project this to infinite, and you see when you are going to love all of the spirits in the same way. You talk about Jesus, the governor of this planet, that loves us all equally, the good, the bad, and the easy ones and the difficult ones. Why? Because Jesus, as a perfect spirit, reached a level of evolution where he's able to love every spirit that is under his guard and protection with the same degree, at same intensity, and same care. So you see the target there. Until we get there, we are going to have some affections here that are not true affections, and then you are going to lose them. I remember when I left Brazil 25 years ago, my boss told me, this was before internet, before you could connect through Facebook and WhatsApp at all times. He told me, you see that living abroad, you are never going to lose your true friends. But the ones that you know, your companions that you know, those are the ones that you are going to lose. And that's true. After almost 30 years out, I went there last week, and my friends from the past, we were all together again, and it was, we still have the close connections. The ones that I didn't have a close connection, I lost along the way. Some of them sometimes I find through the Facebooks of this life, but it's like this in the spiritual world. The true loved ones are going to stay with you, and you are going to carry with. So Eric, you were one of those that I saw last week in Brazil, and here you are. You asking a question. What's the root cause of anger, resentment? For me, it's attachment. Every time we are attached to material or even not material things, like our thoughts, we become vulnerable to get angry, resented. Yeah, exactly, right? Depends on our attachments to others are real and it's real love, or is possessive love. It is possessive love, then it's not true love. It's not real love, and these are the ones that are going to cause us issues, because then it can become, from love, it can become hatred very easily, right? The two extremes that are closely connected. But true love, you love someone regardless if that person is doing good, doing bad, making mistakes. You don't endorse or agree with their actions and their mistakes. You can disagree. You can try to help them see the right way, but you're never going to not love them, because if it's true love, it's part of who you are already, and you as eternal spirits that eventually they will overcome their imperfections. Okay. All right. I talked a lot on this one. Anyone? Any questions? Any comments? No? Okay.
297. Does the affection of two spirits carry over from this world to the spirit world? Yes. If it is based on true sympathy. If physical causes have influenced this affection more than sympathy, it ends with those causes. Affections are more solid and lasting among spirits than human beings because they are not subject to the whims of material interests and self-love.
Yes, more of what we discuss here, right? So our relationships that are based in true sympathy or true love will carry on back to the spiritual world, even if we are not together, because it's an eternal bond that unites us. If this affection is mainly caused by physical attraction or things like that, or of things of the physical nature, when we go back to the spiritual world, we lose these connections, right? So of all the people we know here on earth, are we going to be connected to all of them in the spiritual world? Of course not, because many of those are connections that let's say give an example of our workplace, right? You are surrounded, let's say you work in a place that has 30 people besides you. You have good friends there, you have people that you know from the work, their relationships are closer, not closer, and some that you really do not get along with. When you leave this job for another job, do you keep contact with these 30 people? No, you don't. You keep contact with maybe 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 that you were connected closely. The others, you lose track of them and lose connection because they were not really true connections. They were just work colleagues. So work colleagues, they stay behind as we move on. It's more or less the same as we move back to the spiritual world. Okay. Any comments here, questions? Elmo, anything to add here?
No, not really. I think I covered everything.
Okay.
298. Are souls predestined to be together from inception? And do we each have other half somewhere in the universe with whom we will be reunited one day? No, there is no destined union between two souls. Union exists between all spirits, but in varying degrees according to their ranking or their degree of perfection. The closer to perfect, the more united they are. This harmony produces all the problems of human life, while harmony generates perfect happiness.
Okay, so soulmates do not exist, okay? Because we are all individual spirits. If we bring the notion that we have somewhere in the universe another half to complete us, means that we are not individuals. We are half individuals, and we need another half to complete us to become full individuals. And that goes against reason and against what we understand in the natural laws and the teachings of Spiritism. We are created as when we become an individual spirit, simple and ignorant in the sense of lack of knowledge, but individuals. And each one of us have their own journey. And bringing the concept of soulmate, of the necessity of having another half somewhere in the universe, it's really, for me, it's really hard to understand. But I remember last time we went through this chapter in our class there when we were in the physical practice. There was someone there that she's no longer attending our classes. She still believes that we have soulmates, that we have other halves somewhere in the world, and she brings her belief from some, I don't remember if it was an African religion or an Eastern religion, and she carries with her. She really believes that, and again, that's fine. Spiritism does not agree with her, but each one has the right to do their own beliefs. But according to Spiritism, the concept of soulmates does not exist because we are individual spirits, and our spiritual family keeps growing, and the concept of soulmates is a restrictive concept, right?
Yes.
Because you have a universal family, but one amongst the universal family is the one that you are truly connected to. For me, it's very hard to make sense. I don't really know how to explain that and understand that. So I'll leave it at that. But if someone has any different opinion on that, please let us know.
Shall I read the next three?
But
Let's go. Yes.
299. In what sense should we interpret the term half, sometimes used by spirits when referring to sympathetic spirits? That expression is inaccurate. If one spirit were half of another, it would be incomplete when separated from its other half.
yeah.
300. When two perfectly sympathetic spirits are reunited, do they remain united for all eternity, or can they separate and unite with other spirits? All spirits who have reached perfection are united. In all other worlds, when a spirit ascends from a lower world to a higher one, it does not always feel the same sympathy for those it has left behind.
Okay, so
Stop there.
let's stop here.
That is
The
true.
first one, it's what we mentioned, the expression that there's no half soul that unite to the two halves of sympathetic spirits. If one spirit was half of another, you'll be incomplete. So we don't have half spirits. We have a full spirits, and two spirits can be united through sympathetic interest and love and care, and they will be united forever. But it's not limited to two. It's an unlimited number that keeps growing with each incarnation. And the concept that do they remain united for all eternity, again, depends on what you call united. If the question is, are they together for all eternity? No. United in the sense of sharing the love for each other, yes, the fraternal love. That again, the word love is a difficult word. We should go back to the Greek that has 6 definitions of love, right? The agape, which is the true love between two eternal spirits. But when you take André Luiz and his mother. His mother loves him deeply, and it's a true love. But she's in a different level of evolution, and she's doing her own work there. She has to continue working. She cannot be with him all the time because he needs to go through his own evolutionary path. It doesn't mean that they are not two spirits that love each other. They are sympathetic spirits. They are in different journeys and different places. So it is what the spirits are trying to tell us here. We don't need to be connected, united for all eternity in terms of being together for all eternity with any spirit, because we all have our individual journey. If you think of a mountain that we all have to climb to reach the peak. The peak is the same for everyone, but the climbing can be done in millions of different ways through the mountain. We may have maybe journeying through a different path, not meaning that we are disconnected from our loved ones. We are united, but not together. Okay, I hope I make myself clear here. I don't know if anyone has any additional comments here.
Yeah, I have a comment to make. Okay, this doesn't really happen in the spiritual world. This can even happen in our world. You know, I sometimes when you experience a transformation in your personality, the ones you put it this way, like a street level, the ones you were hanging out previously are no longer hanging with you because you don't have anything in common.
Yes.
You understand? So you left.
Yeah.
You have got to leave them behind because
Yeah.
you are, you know, you are much more interested in your own evolvement. So you don't.
Yes.
My point is that even here, that my point is that we don't have to wait until we get to the spirit world. That even happens here on Earth, on physical Earth.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You look back on your youth, and some friends, that very close friends that you have there are there. You may not have them anymore now
You know, because
because they chose different paths, or
different paths,
or
exactly.
different interests, and we see that all the time. You're right, Paco. It happens here, and again, the physical world is a reflection of the spiritual world, right? So
I,
what happens here happens there, but
wow,
the
those.
concept here, the two basic concepts here is there's not no such thing as a soulmate, meaning the other half of you somewhere in the universe,
Yeah.
and the true loved ones, true affections are stay forever. The ones that are not really true are the ones that you distance yourself according to necessity. But again, as we all will become perfect spirits and love
Exactly.
all others equally, we are going to be reunited with them again in some formal way that we may not have the ability to understand at this moment.
By the way, your words of wisdom that we are kind of a copy of the other world uh, helps in understanding these issues a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah, I like that concept because in
Oh
the end,
yeah,
that's the reality, right?
I use it all the time, Joe.
Okay, and we finished question 300. We're going to stop there. It's a nice number. So we start next week on 301. We continue. There are still many questions of that. So we come back to that next week. Oh, no, not next week. Next Thursday is Thanksgiving. So
Oh,
we
that's
won't have
right.
our classes next week. Okay,
Yeah.
reminder to everyone. Next Thursday is Thanksgiving. We are closed. We
Okay.
are closed, even virtually, we are closed. So in 2 weeks' time, when we come back, we come back to 301. Okay. Any
One
final
question.
questions here? Yes.
Yeah, one question. Now, so you're going to close. We don't have still a timetable in which we're going to go back, or do we have a timetable for that?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. We're still thinking here
Yeah. Okay.
how we're going to go back. But we are going to. One thing is for sure for all of you that are not here anymore, Orlando, in Miami, in Australia, we are going to keep some form of virtual meeting for sure, right? Even if we are there in our classes, we are going to try to have them
Hybrid. The hybrid.
hybrid. Yes, yes. So Daniela is telling us that no book club also on Wednesday because it's the day before Thanksgiving and a lot of people cannot attend. And they are discussing chapter 6 and we'll be back on December 1st. Okay, so no book club, no Thursday meeting, but we will have the Sunday meetings. This Sunday, we're going to have a special lecture by the second part of Instinct and Intelligence by our friend Luis, that's not here today. He had an internet problem, so he couldn't join us. But so this Sunday, he's going to conclude his presentation on Instinct and Intelligence that he's presented the first part last week. I know some of you have struggled to follow. It's really, it's a very
Dense.
interesting, dense,
Yeah.
yes. And but he has to finish it, so he's finishing this Sunday. Okay, Saturday. This
That's gonna be
Saturday,
yeah. That's gonna be recorded. The
Yes,
Sunday?
that's going to be
Because
recorded.
I'm not
Yes.
gonna be
Yeah.
around, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
watch it.
So this Saturday we have a lecture by Roberto Watanabe. He's the president of the Spiritist Federation of the state of São Paulo. And he's going to talk about the Medium's book, Philosophical and Moral Consequences. So this Saturday at 11, and then Luis on Instinct and Intelligence, second part, Sunday at 11 also, okay? And the following Sunday will be our Q&A session for those that are not going anywhere on Thanksgiving and want to join us. All right?
On the 28th.
On the 28th, yes. Zoraida, can you do our final prayer? You're muted.
Yes. To our spiritual benefactors, our spiritual guides who have come here in assistance, our teachers, we are grateful for that. We ask as we leave here today to continue throughout the week studying and understanding and putting into practice all that has been given to us here today. We ask the Father for the blessings for all those that are still going through challenges with this pandemic, for those that are going through difficulties. May we keep our prayers open for them and all that are in need, in hospitals and hospices, all that are going through hardships. May we continue with our prayers and allow us until we meet again in 2 weeks to be grateful for everything that we have been given, especially here through our SGNY and our studies. We are grateful, dear Father, for every day that we wake up and rest our spiritual bodies at night to give thanks for all that has been given to us. Thank you, dear Lord, and may you continue to guide us and assist us throughout our days here on this planet Earth. May you keep all of us in peace and serenity with your love and your strength. Thank you, dear Lord. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close this part of the meeting today. So be it.